Welcome, mathematicians, to the first lesson for Unit 6. Today we are going to be talking about an introduction on formal proofs. What does it mean to prove something? Okay, when we are creating proofs, we're basically creating arguments that show that something is correct. So what we do is we start with known facts, we reason step by step, and then we show what we're trying to prove is true no matter what, right? We give facts, we give reason, and then prove that that argument is true no matter what. Why is it important to know how to prove something? There are actually quite a few jobs out there that require us to reason mathematically. Of course, those are going to be more of the STEM jobs like computer science, engineering, but reasoning mathematically could also be important if you are working in a career in law, data analysis, research, so on and so forth, right? Anywhere where you are going to need to be proving or arguing, right, your idea or thoughts. However, for those of you who don't plan on having a career such as this, right, you still, I would argue most people need to be able to construct a valid argument. This could just be in simple conversation with friends and family, right? Constructing those valid arguments so that people understand what you're trying to say and believe what you're trying to say. But in any job, if you want to argue for a promotion, argue for a raise, if you want to make a big purchase that has a flexible price, you're gonna be required to construct an argument in which you're stating those facts. You are making sense with reason to prove that what you are saying is a valid and true statement that other people should believe. What is a proof specifically? Looking at the vocabulary word, a proof is a process of establishing the validity of a statement by derivation from other statements in accordance with principles of reasoning. That is the mathiest complicated definition ever. So I threw this definition to ChatGPT and I was like, hey, what is a more an easier definition to understand? So with a couple tweaking, I have adjusted it to say this. A proof is showing that something is true by using other things that we already know are true and explaining our reasoning in a clear logical steps. Okay, showing that something that we know is true, using other information that we already know is true to show clear and logical steps. That is what a proof is. Some examples of proofs, right? In the text, they talk about Mika's sister who only ever sees cars with 4 wheels, and she states that all cars have 4 wheels. And the question is she correct? Well, technically, no. Unless you want to start having conversations of what is a car? Is the car the general term? Is the car, are we talking about sedan? Like, what's our definition of car? Because, when I searched cars with more, or, with not 4 wheels, right? These examples popped up. We've got a truck with 6 wheels, and realistically, this is a funky truck with 6 wheels, but right, a dually has 6 wheels, and that is a very normal truck to see on the road. And then this little car here that has 3 wheels, and I specifically used something that looked like a sedan. There's plenty of cars out there that have 3 wheels, but I wasn't sure if they were considered cars by everybody's terms. But once again, that is that taking information that may or may not be true and using it. Okay, what is a car to one person is not a car to another, and being able to explain our reasonings and get other people on board with those reasonings so that they too believe is true is why we talk about proofs. Other examples, if we're talking mathematical ones that we've used so far, the Pythagorean theorem, we talked about this very, very recently, right? But we also talked very recently about the theorem that all interior angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. These are all, all of our theorems that we work with, those are all things that have been proven. And so in that case, right, it is a prime example of how we would create mathematical proofs. And we'll look at that more in this unit. That is it for our introduction on proofs. Please reach out if you have any questions, and until next time.